Welcome to Culture Alchemy, where we do a deep dive into film, TV, music, and the stories and trends lighting up the group chat. We'll discuss what it means, why it matters, and how it shapes us. I'm Antoinette.
And I'm Andrew. Each week we've got pop culture's hottest takes served fresh. We're turning pop culture into pure gold. This is Culture Alchemy. Hi, Antoinette.
Hey, Drew.
How's it going? You're on vacation in BC.
I am. I'm in beautiful Vancouver. Been here for a few days, and we'll be here a few days more. Just getting some R&R on the West Coast and a change of scenery, which has been lovely. And excited to be doing today's episode remotely from my own vacation as we talk about White Lotus and vacationing at resorts.
Amazing. So, do you think when you go on vacation, do you think that, or any trip you do, there's a line in White Lotus when they say, you won't be the same person by the end of this trip. I think that's in season 3. Do you feel the same every time you have a getaway or go on vacation? You kind of change as a person?
Well, that's a great question. Yes, I do think so. On some level, that your perspective changes, and I think you learn a lot about yourself. And then in my case, I'm traveling with a group. There's 7 of us together, and yeah, we're learning a lot about each other as well. Like, I think it's always revealing to travel. You do confront a lot of yourself when you're traveling and get exposed to new things. And I think it can really show you, what you're made of. But also, I think just having new perspectives on a place that I felt I already knew. Like I've learned new things about, Vancouver, and I've had new perspective on Toronto as well, right? Just by talking to people here on the West Coast and hearing their views. So yeah, that's really interesting, that take on how it changes you. But I think that is the travel imperative, like the great road trip or the gap year, or, the kind of idea of going somewhere new and getting lost to find yourself, I think is, been there in the culture forever. So I absolutely agree. Yeah, I think I'm always a little bit changed, a little bit different from every trip, even if it's within the same country. Mm-hmm. I think you can learn a lot just by seeing something new.
Yeah, I agree with that. Every trip I go on, it leaves an imprint on me, and I'm definitely changed a bit, some more than others, but yeah. Speaking of travel, I'm excited to talk about season 2 of White Lotus and season 3 in this episode.
Yeah, we got into season 1, and we peppered in a little bit of the others, but yeah, we're going to take a deeper dive. So I'm excited to get into it too, and I'm in vacation state of mind. So let's get into it.
Okay, so what was your first impression of what's your thoughts about season 2 of White Lotus?
Oh, wow. Overall, I mean, it's a great season. I think as a sophomore season, you're always going in a little bit with bated breath, because the first season was so good that, you hope that the second season of any show is as good. I think season 2 is definitely excellent. I know we're gonna give our power rankings later. Season 2 for me, we're in Italy now, and Italy itself, I think, makes season 2 very unique in that it almost became another character for the season. It really dictated a lot of the themes that were ever present, and the vibe of season 2 felt very different for me just because of the location. In fact, I did hear Mike White, showrunner, talk about season 2, and I think initially when he was going to do season 2, he was thinking about doing it around a different theme altogether, maybe going back to the theme of power and privilege and money again. And when he got to Italy and saw the location, he realized immediately that he had to do a show about something totally different, that season two was going to be more about sex. And just in hearing him say that, my feeling when I watched season two with that context as well is that I absolutely got that feeling, that Italy itself provided um, another another type of viewing experience. It was different than season one. It had a little bit more of a dramatic feel to it. Definitely a lot of the sensuality that I think Mike White was trying to express around the culture. So when people talk about shows that maybe are not as successful when they're shot on location because they don't really make use of the location, season two, I think, was the antithesis of that. I think season two really understood the culture and the place that they were shooting in, and I think that really made season two stand out, and it's in a very interesting way.
Yeah, I agree. Season one, the main themes of season one was class and privilege and colonization, and this season two was all about sex.
Mm.
That's a lot was about, infidelity, hypocrisy, and romantic relationships as well. Um, Pretty much every character and every scene, there is some element of that in the whole season. So I really like the characters in season two, and I love the location. Um, yeah, I've never been to Italy, but it's a beautiful place, and yeah, it's intertwined with like love and romance, and also sex as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I have been to Italy, and I think this is definitely a season where you can tell they use the location to the max. It definitely oozed, like you said, sex and I think sensuality and desire. All these are really strong themes. So I overall really did like season two, and I think that a lot of people would even say season two is the best season. It's not lost to me that a big part of what you were talking about, the vibe of the season based on the location, has a big part to do with that.
I agree, and there's a lot to unpack, but even in the first few episodes, with the characters Cameron and Harper and Ethan, you know, Harper sees, I mean, Cameron starts changing into his bathing suit in front of her, and
Mm.
she's kind of looking at him, and she's like wondering like, what is he doing here? Even from the first few episodes, you know that it's there's gonna be some issues in future episodes between the two of them.
Mhm.
What did you make of that when Cameron is just changing in front of her? Do you think she liked him in that way from the start of the season? Do you think she saw him as, you know, an object of future affection?
Great question. Yeah, so I do remember the scene in question, of course. Um, Harper is in the bathroom grabbing sunscreen, and Cameron, basically walks up to an adjacent room where he knows obviously there's a view of what he's doing from the mirror, and just drops trowel. Yeah, I think my read on that is that initially, I think like anyone, I think Harper was a little taken aback by it,
Yeah.
for sure. That was definitely there. I also think maybe there was a little bit of a curiosity. Like, I think coming into that particular scene, we'd already seen the dynamic between her and her husband, Ethan, and it seemed like there was maybe the marriage had lost a little bit of passion. And so I think when that happened, she probably just thought, okay, that's weird. Why would he do that? But also at the same time, it probably was like a very, like, I don't know, erotic experience. And arousing and just, you know, if she's coming
Seems
from.
like she was checking him out. Seems like she was attracted to him from the start, but he did that on that was intentional, right? That seems like from the very beginning he was trying to, that was a move he did. Yeah.
That's very interesting. So yeah, I mean, I didn't initially think she was attracted to him. I didn't read that. But did I read that, he was hanging dong and she probably got a little turned on? I did read that. But yeah, I think your um your point's an interesting one, just in terms of, did he do it intentionally? What was his intention? I
Yeah.
I think his intention was definitely to get a rise out of her. And I definitely think that he knew what he was doing. Um,
Yeah. I agree.
yeah, and I think, as the season goes on, obviously we get a better sense of maybe how frequently Cameron does step out on his partner Daphne. That's something that he does. So I think that might have been like his odd way of seducing her, like priming her, as it were, like, just kind of like giving her a little bit of a show, and maybe to see what she would do. Like, would she act on it? Would she say something? Would she not say something? So I think it was a very interesting move on his part, because yeah, what was his intention? He must have known what he was doing. So I have to, yeah, I have to assume that he was um, kind of grooming her, kind of getting her ready for, like, exposing her a little bit, um, and kind of crossing that initial boundary to
Yeah, definitely
see,
in the boundary.
what I mean, what he could do later. I think that was what he was doing. And yeah, I honestly, don't think her reaction um, would be any different than mine. I think if someone did that, I would probably just be kind of stunned. I would just kind of wonder, like, what's up with that? Do they not realize what's going on? So I have to kind of wonder, like, what would I do in that situation? I probably wouldn't say anything in the moment. Um, or maybe I would. Maybe I would do a courtesy slide at the door. I don't know, but it happened so quickly. It was kind of a hit and run. Um, that yeah, I probably would have had the same response as her. Just find it odd. I would definitely do what she did. I would tell my partner, like, right away, probably, that happened. Um, but yeah, no, I definitely think he knew what he was doing. I think she was caught in a hit and run situation.
I agree, and I kind of want to continue on focusing on these four characters. Later in this season, Ethan and Cameron, they have a night out of debauchery. Well, more Cameron than Ethan, but they the two Mia and sorry, Mia
Lucia,
and
isn't it?
yeah, Lucia join them in their night of debauchery, who are being paid, to have fun with them that night. Do you think that I mean, we know that Cameron does, hook up with with one of them, but do you think that Ethan hooked up as well, or was he too like drunk and just kind of did his own thing?
That's also a great question. I definitely think that Ethan hooked up with Daphne. So there is a scene towards the end of the series where Ethan he's basically flipped his lid because he found out that Cameron made a move on Harper, and that I guess they had a little makeout session. It was a scene where he went up to the hotel and the door was latched, and it made him start thinking about other things that may have happened. And there was an obvious mistrust between him and Harper, and probably with his friend Cameron too, because he'd seen what Cameron gets up to when left to his own devices. So he was probably right to feel that way. But I think,
Do you think Harper and Cameron did more than she finally admitted that they kissed after, Ethan had to pull that over. Do you think they did more than kiss in that hotel room when she went up there to get her hat, like she said she did?
Yeah, that is the $1 million question. I I don't know. I don't know.
Or do you think it was just a kiss?
I feel definitely at minimum, yeah, they kissed. I I'm somewhat inclined to believe that maybe something more happened. I don't
Yeah.
know if it was like we're talking full penetration, but probably some hand stuff. Sure, if it was like something more happened. I just feel like the way that Ethan had to pry it out of Harper, she never volunteered it.
Yeah.
That to me just seems super sus. Like I was really shocked because he had a great point when he said if the door was latched, like okay, first off, why is it latched? Secondly, if I hadn't
Yeah.
knocked on the door, if I hadn't come up and knocked, what would have happened? So I have,
Yeah, exactly.
you know,
What would have happened? See, that surprised me too with Aubrey's character. I mean, with Harper, her character that it took her so long to admit that something actually happened. It was that kiss actually happened.
yeah,
So who's to say that more did not happen? Or
yeah,
would have
or
happened,
wouldn't
but
have
he didn't
happened.
come up.
Exactly. Like
Yeah,
where
yeah.
like what would have stopped them from from carrying on. So that's the biggest question mark for me. If any of our listeners have a take on that, we'd love to hear it, but I haven't heard Mike White clarify that either way. I think he's left it ambiguous, and I would be very curious to hear the take from either um, of the actors involved in that scene, like what their thoughts were, what intention they had in their mind when they were doing that scene. But I almost think because of how Harper, withheld the makeout, I feel like something more may have happened. But I definitely think that Ethan definitely banged Daphne. There's no question. They had a little bit of a romp in the lagoon, and there's no question in my mind that's what happened. I think
See, what see that when I was watching that episode, yeah, so they're talking on the beach, Ethan and Daphne, and she's like, she takes him to the lagoon, this beautiful lagoon, which we never see also. But when I was watching it, maybe I'm just naive or, just, I don't know, maybe I was just, I was wondering, I was like, how come we never see this lagoon that Daphne takes Ethan to? And also, it's she has that look in her eye too, and
mm,
he's following her to the lagoon, and then they don't speak of what happens at the lagoon afterwards at all. Like nobody mentions that what happens at the lagoon stays at the lagoon. Like there's no mention of the lagoon in further episodes, but at the time, I didn't think that anything happened. I think, or just like maybe, oh, she wants to take him to this nice lagoon. That's cool. But then the fact that they never showed the lagoon or what happens at the lagoon,
mm.
so that's kind of a bit suspect. You're right. So you think they did hook up
No
for
question,
sure?
100%.
Well,
And I think this for a couple of reasons. One, there was a conversation between Ethan and Daphne when Ethan basically said, "Hey, I think something happened between Harper and Ethan." The look on Daphne's face, she did look
mhm.
somewhat defeated, but I noticed almost immediately she just shook it off and held her shoulders up. And I mean, by the way, I gotta say, the actress Megan Fahey who played this great. I mean, she did a great job here because she was telling all sorts of stories with her eyes. Her eyes were clouded with tears because I think she was initially feeling the hurt because she knows her husband and knew damn well that
Mhm.
he probably did sleep with her or did do something. But I think it was the way that she shook it off and suddenly looked at Ethan and said, and I'm badly paraphrasing, but she made a comment, something to the effect of, well, you know, you do what you have to do. to maintain, your dignity, essentially, like in a relationship. You just do what you have to do. And after saying that, she said, "Hey, why don't we go check out this lagoon?" With a very seductive look in her eye. The way that the music is used in this show to great effect also told me that was. I mean, the music was telling me basically, short of them playing Barry White, let's get it on. Like the music was basically telling
Mhm.
me like something's about to go down here, and there was a mischievous sort of tension between them as they were walking, that long camera shot that he held, and the way she was looking back at him, and the little monologue she gave before inviting him there, told me that she was definitely going there to get some kind of payback. That this is the way that Daphne operates in her marriage with her husband, that she knows her husband steps out on her on a regular, and she
Mhm.
just looks the other way. And her way of also maintaining some sort of dignity and control and power is to do what, as she said, what she has to do. And I also think there's theories floating out there, about the paternity of one of the kids. So some people think that one of her kids was actually had, through an affair. And if you go,
Her personal trainer, is that what she meant? She mentions her personal
possibly,
trainer.
possibly, but there's a
Mm.
scene where Cameron is in the bathroom and Daphne's on the phone with her kids, and she's calling out to Cameron to come say hello to the kid, like one of the kids, the son, I guess the eldest son, who's calling for Cameron. And you can see Cameron kind of going, ugh, like in the mirror, as if it's kind of a chore, like he doesn't want to do it. And then he comes out and kind of performatively kind of goes, "Hey," and has the conversation with his son. And something, about that scene seemed a little off. And I have heard people talk about the fact that they think it's because both him and Daphne know that the kid in question is actually not his kid. Like he knows it, and they both keep, secrets from each other. But certainly she knows, and she spoke about, this with Harper when they were on their little girls' trip at the resort on their own, without their partners.
Yeah.
Like, hey, yeah, people do what they need to do to maintain their marriage, maintain their dignity. She mentioned it multiple times. So that tells me that not only does she know that her husband on a regular, is seeing other women, but that she's decided, well, what's good for him is good for me, right? So I think she definitely does that to regain some control and power, um, whether it's flirting with other men or having extramarital affairs. But I think both of them are doing the kind of don't ask, don't tell. And one could argue, I mean, looking at the way this series ended, uh, well, they seem to be. Well, I guess I'll ask you this question: like, what are your thoughts on their dynamic? Because you can see at the end of the show, they're still together. Obviously, something is kind of working for them in that dynamic. But I'd be curious to see how you view, the relationship between Daphne and Cameron.
Um, yeah, it didn't surprise me that they're still together at the end. I mean, yeah, Cameron and Ethan go out, and then Cameron hooks up with Lucia, and Mia is trying to get Ethan to do the same, but I really don't think that Ethan did hook up with Mia that night. But potentially he hooked up with Daphne at um, the lagoon we
Mm-hmm.
talked about. But I think as far as Daphne and Cameron's relationship, I just think she's just going to stay with him, and and just look the other way, and just kind of like, just it is what it is type of thing, and this is the way he is, and this is what I married into, and she just kind of has to accept it, that I don't think he's going to change his ways when he goes back home either. Um, but I think they're going to stay together. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I'm actually kind of agree with you.
I don't think he like all that's that happened on at the hotel. I don't all the things that happened between him and Ethan as well. I don't think Cameron's going to change as a person over this. I think he's going to continue to be, the way he is, and Daphne is just going to continue to accept that.
I very much agree. I think they're going to maintain status quo. And to your point, I think both are going to look the other way at all the dalliances because I think that it works for them. Um, and yeah, I also agree with you when you say that Ethan and Mia, like nothing happened. I'm fairly certain that nothing happened. I think what we saw is what we saw. He didn't do anything, and unfortunately, I think because in part maybe because Harper felt so sketched out by Cameron that like and knowing also talking to Daphne, she was pretty much confirmed by by talking to Daphne that Cameron is not Ethan and that Cameron will step out. The influence of him over on Ethan at that time, she may have thought that he did something, which I think then lit the fuse for her to maybe entertain Cameron a little more than she would have had she not thought that Ethan drew first blood. I mean, I also think that the dynamic between Cameron and Harper, or excuse me, Ethan and Harper, lent to that misunderstanding as well. It was kind of like kerosene on that whole situation because, if her husband is not being intimate with her and there has been like a bit of a fizzle in the relationship, then it could make somebody very insecure and you find a condom in your room, you kind of go, well, a logical person will just go one plus one is usually two, right? And I think it's understandable how she felt that way, but I definitely think that yeah, Ethan was on the level. He did tell her what happened, and I think actually a little bit more eager to volunteer than I believe Harper was. So yeah, I think that whole dynamic between the four son was really really interesting, and it also really really did leave a lot of questions around what really happened. But I feel as if there were great performances all around, but all the actors. I think Aubrey Plaza, like, just knocked that one out of the park as well too. And I think um, it was very interesting to watch the dynamic between all of the couples. And I do think at the end of the day, in an odd way, I think Ethan and Harper, I think they're also going to be okay as well because I think what it did, I think the conflict actually allowed them to see that well, a couple things. One, that the relationship was probably being neglected, that there was some serious need for to reignite that kind of spark that they needed.
Oh, definitely. We learned that Ethan really likes to run a lot. He runs a lot in
Yeah.
the season, I guess to get out his
Yeah.
frustrations. Sweating a lot in this season. And we also learned that he likes his porn. All right.
That's right.
He definitely is. I hope he cancels his Pornhub subscription. All right, after
Or
this
maybe
season.
not. Maybe
Yeah.
not. Maybe it's something that him and Harper can share together, right? Like maybe that brings them closer together, and they actually can indulge each other's fantasies a little bit more. Maybe this whole,
I feel like they have
you know,
changed. Yeah, I feel like this trip has changed them, and I agree with you. I feel like they're
well,
going to stay
definitely, I think
together.
they're gonna definitely have um, some more heat in the relationship, and I think they're gonna recognize that the other person is also desirable. I think that's a key thing. I think that both of them were probably taking the other a little bit for granted, and so they both saw that, oh yeah, my partner is actually a desirable person. If I don't put the work in here, I could lose them. I think that's a big thing that for me anyways was a takeaway watching that relationship and seeing like how much they wanted each other at the end was definitely a byproduct of seeing somebody else want their partner.
And also, I also, before we move on to the other characters, I also wanted to, the way sex is used between these characters is interesting to me. I felt like Cameron, I mean, he's not faithful
Mm.
to Daphne, um, but I think he was hitting on Harper as because he was kind of jealous of Ethan as well. I think there's a point made about that too. You know, that Ethan now has, you know, he's succeeded and he's well off. And I think there's some jealousy between Cameron and Ethan, even though, you know, Cameron, you know, has it all too. But I feel like that's one of the reasons why he wanted to get with Harper as well,
Mm.
because there was that jealousy towards
Yes, I
Ethan.
totally agree. I totally agree. And I think it's just goes back to, simple mathematics. It's like, yeah, I'm jealous of this person. You have something, maybe not even necessarily something I want, but you have it, so I'm going to take it. I really think that it was as simple as that.
Hmm.
I do. And I definitely agree. I think you can see that dynamic a lot in the conversation between Cameron and Ethan throughout the dinner scenes, especially when he is almost like obsessed with this idea of bringing up Ethan's past and how Ethan struggled, with his self-esteem, with girls. Like he almost
Yeah,
relished bringing it up in front of their partners. And so I absolutely agree. I think it's a little bit of his jealousy around Ethan's success, and this maybe was one area where he felt like I can I can reign supreme. So yeah.
I agree. I agree. And I kind of wanted to move to another character,
Hmm.
so Cameron, hooks up with Lucia. Lucia gets around in this season. She gets around. She gets around. So I wanted to talk about she first we know gets with Dom, who's the father of Albie, and his dad is Bert. Um, yeah, I wanted to talk about these three characters. What did you make of the dynamic between Albie and Dominic and Bert and also Albie's interest in Portia?
First and foremost, I really loved Portia. Like when we previously talked, I think in the our first episode on White Lotus about our favorite characters. So let me just lay this on you right now. Portia is one of my favorite characters. I think I think that character could have been
Okay.
extremely annoying too. It could have been a really a backseat kind of role in a different actress's hands. That character may have actually been very annoying. I think Haley Lee Richardson did a fantastic job playing Portia because I really connected with her and
I
really
agree.
liked Portia. Um, by the end of the series, she's one of my favorites. She's up there for me with Valentina as well, being another one of my favorites in a very different way. But Portia, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the two of my favorites right there, for very different reasons. But anyways, to get back to your question, Portia, of course, is there um, as the assistant to Jennifer Coolidge's character Tanya, and is basically told to get lost when she is spotted by Tanya's then husband Greg. And so she was immediately put into a really awkward situation. And I think her character, for me, found some solace, I think, in the character of Elby, like the nice guy who, you know, was kind of there for her when she was down. So I think the dynamic between, if we're talking about Portia, Elby, and uh, Lucia, I think it's kind of like, I think Portia, admittedly, I think she maybe doesn't have maybe the greatest taste in men, or I would just call it youth actually, but she clearly.
We do learn that because she likes her bad
Yeah,
boys because she goes after
yeah,
Jack,
yeah.
and that does not
No,
go
it doesn't go
well. All
well. It doesn't go
right.
well. So Albie, for me, when I see Portia with Albie, I think Portia knows Albie is fantastic and really likes him. But I don't think she was at the time, anyways, wired to be attracted to him. To your point, she likes the bad boys. And I think with
Mhm.
LB, again, that same quality about LB being a nice guy, being a gentleman, I think is the thing that made Lucia look at LB as well, not only somebody that I think at the end she did have a lot of respect for and who cared for him, but also made LB a great mark for Lucia. So I think um, that's how I see LB. I see LB as sort of like this. Um, if I can use the father and the grandfather as generations of men who were basically ruled by their libidos and their basic instincts, to just sort of basically have sex with anything that kind of moves. I think LB represented this new generation of a man, a more I guess uh, I don't want to say I don't want to say timid, or it's not the right word. I think with LB it's more like he kind of represents a more nuanced version of a modern day man who has a
Mhm.
different sort of view on gender itself and the dynamics between men and women. And I think gender was another theme that Mike White was playing with, and the dynamics between men and women in particular. And I think LB represented, yeah, somebody who, maybe has also seen his own mother go through turmoil with the father and is now trying to perhaps be better than he perceived his father to be. So I think LB represented this kind of the new generation, I guess, of men who are being raised by men who may have displayed more um, you know, more old school, uh, uh, I'll say, hyper masculine traits. He was the opposite of that. So I think LB was a great character to have in that cast of people because, yeah, he was a lightning rod for Lucia and for Lucia's scamming essentially, and also was supportive to Portia and provided that sort of best friend energy to her. But also he's got the influence of his father and his grandfather, who are two men who obviously, yeah, are uh, pretty ravenous when it comes to their appetites when it comes to women. So I really enjoyed the dynamic between Portia, LB, and Lucia. That was interesting. And then kind of to wrap up and talk about Dom and Bert, the other two men. I think what we saw is the trifecta, the holy trinity of um, generational differences between men and how they, I suppose, represent different types of manhood. So I think that's another thing that comes up. Like they were talking earlier in one scene, the three men about the Godfather and the importance of the
Yeah.
Godfather. And I think that was a really interesting scene as well because it just showed how far generationally apart they were in terms of how they view relationships and in terms of how um, they view their own identity as men, and it gave us a window into maybe how LB perceives his father and his grandfather as being maybe a little bit more uh, closer to what we might call like a toxic masculinity. So it was interesting, the dynamic between the three. I'm basically seeing three generations of men, the influence that fathers have
Mhm.
on their sons, and then the son. trying to change his fate and who he is becoming, and trying to do it under the watchful eye of his father and his grandfather's influence. So it was really, I thought, very interesting to see those three generations play out. But yeah, what were your thoughts on all those characters?
You that was really well said. I feel very similar to where you. I really enjoyed the dynamic between the three of them. I mean, there is a scene when they talk about the Godfather, and
Mm-hmm.
Albie is just basically says that they're talking about the grandfather's talking about Godfather's one of his favorite films and why it is. And Albie says you're nostalgic for the old days of the patriarchy. Dominic says you're
Mm-hmm.
undeniably great movies. Then Albie says men love The Godfather because they feel emasculated by modern society. It's a fantasy about a time when they could go out and solve all the problems with violence and sleep with every woman, and then come home to their wife who doesn't ask them any questions and makes them pasta. And Bert says, hey, it's a normal male fantasy. And Albie says, no, movies like that socialize men into having that fantasy. And it's just a great scene talking about that, just like you said, that the grandfather Bert is this is the way he grew up and this is the way he raised Dom. And you can see Dom in the season that he kind of he has a lot of regret about his ex who he cheated on, who's Albie's mom, and he's lonely too. You see him walking on the beach alone and thinking about all the mistakes he's made. But so he's trying to change, but it's almost like he can't because he just grew up in this environment and he feels like maybe he's too old now at this point. But Albie is able to make that change
Mm, yeah, yeah,
because
very well
Tom does
said.
say to his grandfather on point, he
Mm,
says, his dad, sorry, Bert, he says that I saw you cheated on mom. Like, this is the example that I was, this is the example that I grew up with. This is the only thing I've known. I don't know how to treat a woman. I don't know how to love a woman and have a relationship with a woman. And he suffered with this because he has his own infidelity and his marriage didn't work out. But Albie has an opportunity to, like you said, be that you know, new uh, idea of what a man should be in a relationship and to a woman
mm,
and what a modern masculine man is.
yeah, yeah. And although I don't remember how old he was at the time, I'm sure they mentioned his age, but I'm clocking him because he was going to Stanford. And, he was obviously, somewhere in his upper teens. I mean, I can't remember his exact age, but just thinking about what you just said about I'll be trying to figure out what does it mean to be to be a man. Like his template from his perspective may have been faulty. Like he's trying to figure out, like, well, what does it mean? And I do think that's a very difficult thing. I'm sure, well, you're a man, I'm sure you can relate to this even more, but just growing up and figuring out who you are, period, is such a huge struggle for people. And I think at that time of your life, you have your I mean, the role models around you,
Yeah.
like your grandfather, your father, extremely important to your understanding of what it means to be a man. So I think that Godfather scene is really important and does speak to, identity. Like, you were saying, like these different generations have different understandings of what it means and why they would romanticize the Godfather. I think, yeah, this whole you know, trifecta of generational takes on manhood was really well done and really helped to, I think, hammer out the theme around identity and also like nature versus nurture as well.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with that. I mean, especially as a man, like growing up, I've had a similar experience to Albie, in some ways. Like you do look up to your dad,
Mhm.
and that's the example you see of how, um, you know, your dad's relationship to his mom and how he treats women as well, and it definitely
Mm,
shapes you. And Dom struggles with that in this when he's on vacation, and Bird is, he's been in, he hasn't been faithful to his wife, and obviously Dom grew up and that shaped him, but now he's looking back at, and he regrets a lot of things, like I said, and so but Albie rejects this, and it is more an example of a modern man. Yeah.
mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very interesting dynamic for sure. And since we were on the topic of different characters, I'm curious which characters were your favorite from season two and why?
That's a great question. I would say my favorite character is Albie.
Mm,
Yeah, he he's he's the nice guy. He definitely is trying to be the best. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's he's he rejects his father and his grandfather's views on women and masculinity. Um, he I feel like he's like a romantic. I feel like he wants to find
mhm.
love, and I can relate to a lot of things with Albie, and I like how he conducts himself. He's not um, swayed by all these things and that happens to him, and he's a romantic kind of dreamer type of character. I feel like, and he ends up he starts he starts the season liking Portia, and then Portia chooses Jack, so he kind of gets his heart broken there. But then he gets in a romantic relationship with Lucia, and I think he really falls in love with Lucia. And unfortunately, we see at the end what Lucia's intentions were. But I would say Albie's my favorite character. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, I definitely like Albie as well too. I think, yeah, he was a very interesting one for sure. And I already mentioned Portia, and then Valentina was another one that I really liked as well too. And I think that might be surprising to some people because her, her role as sort of the, I guess, directrice of the resort, or at least the concert, um, kind
Mhm.
of made her seem a little square. I mean, obviously she was pretty wound, pretty tight, and we now know why that was the case, right? Like, so I think she just also needed a little bit of loving, Valentina, and I really liked her sense of humor as well. She had a couple of good improv lines, by the way, by that actress during a lot of her performance, and I really think, again, speaking to the identity theme throughout season two, and seeking identity and desire and why people desire what they desire. I think Valentina was a really interesting character that way because, as a woman who, uh, was obviously sort of exploring her own sexuality, her own queerness. Like she had not had experiences with women, and I think it was just like you said with Elby. Like Elby is someone who's probably a romantic and has very
An
yeah.
idealist. Yeah.
Thank you. That's actually exactly the right sentiment. Yeah, exactly. Like he was an idealist, and in her own way, although it may not have seemed it, I actually saw the same in Valentina. I saw that Valentina was somebody as well who idealized the woman who was working with her, idealized the idea of being with her and creating a romantic sort of evening together. Like she really was a romantic, and I think she just wanted to find love and be loved and to be seen. And I think without knowing a lot about her backstory, I started to see her with a lot more empathy because I think she's still trying to figure out who she is and figure out her own identity and the struggle there. So I think all those characters, ironically, I'm now realizing is like I kind of do like my mental. Venn diagram, Albie, Valentina, Portia, all of them were struggling with who am I and like what's my identity and how to navigate the sort of twisted world that they found themselves in at that resort in Italy. So I think yeah, there was some wonderful characters throughout the season, and I think that's what made the season so strong as well too.
I agree. Amazing characters. Another one of my favorite characters was
Mm-hmm.
Lucia.
Mm-hmm.
I just felt she was like the vixen of the season, you know. She caused so many she was involved with so many
Mm-hmm.
characters. And I like just like really good performance by Simona Tabasco. She just intertwined with pretty much like
Yeah.
everyone in some
Yeah.
way. And I
Mm.
wanted to ask you, do you think Lucia, do you think this was her, like, was she working them all from the beginning, or
Mm.
did she get the idea to go after Albie, or was that always the original plan? And do you think that she fell in love with Albie too? Because I think she kind of did. I think she
Okay,
did.
so that
Yeah.
those are all great questions. Before I answer it, why do you think she was in love with Albie?
I just, for some reason, because there is scenes where she doesn't ask for any money, but
Mm.
he wants to give her money. And just, she, I mean, this, the, like, I feel like there's real passion between them. I feel like that was something that developed that she didn't
Mm.
anticipate. And I don't know, maybe you haven't seen the last of the two of them. Maybe
Mm.
I don't know. I just think that there was real passion between them, and it wasn't a transaction all the time. And yeah,
Mm.
that's just my hot take.
Okay.
What
Yeah,
do you think?
now that you mention it, I definitely see what you're saying. Like, I don't think that everything between Albie and Lucia was transactional. They're definitely towards the end. The way, you know what, the way that they shot the intimate scenes, I think did change. I think the first few were a little bit
Yeah,
more carnal, a little bit more primal, and I feel like the last one, to your point, um, was yeah, it was more tender. It was more, um, at least the way that Simona portrayed Lucia.
it felt more
Definitely,
intimate. Yeah, and not like
definitely, yeah, it was
yeah.
absolutely the case, and so I think you're right, and I think she. So I think also two things can be true. I think uh, on one hand, she could have seen him as a mark, and that was her initial intention. I do believe
Mhm.
that was her initial intention. I actually do think that. And also, to your point, I think, you know, hey, we have a situation where she actually realized, hey, this is a really nice guy. This is somebody who's treated me uh, with respect and kindness and love. And I feel like Lucia really saw him. Like when you see someone, you go, yeah, okay. Um, they're kind of an easy mark. I can manipulate them. I think there was a difference in how she looked at him at the end. He could still be the mark, but also she saw him. She was really intimate with him, and like they said about intimacy, into me you see. She could see him like for the first time, like, oh, he's actually a really good person. Like he actually cares about me and I care about him. So I do agree with you. I think as close as one can say that she could love him, I think she definitely caught feelings for him and wasn't expecting that. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. I
Now,
agree.
you mentioned the let me pause here for a second because you did mention something earlier and I wanted to park it and come back to it around um the relationships. You mentioned Albie, you mentioned Lucia and their dynamic, and whether or not she really was into him. Uh, I think there was something that prompted me to want to ask, but of course, I'm in vacation mode, people. I lost it already. So I think what I will ask you instead, actually, is just going back to, some of the things that we saw in season two, um, questions around intentions. I think that's what it was, where I was going with that. You know, there's a lot of scenes that are open to interpretation where there's a lot of ambiguity, where we're not sure. Did they sleep together? Uh, does she really love him? Is that really the intention? So I have a question now. I know we're still wading in the waters of season two, um, but I'm going to pepper a little bit of season three in here because at this point now, we do have the other characters that we haven't really spoken about at length, but Tanya and Greg and their relationship. And I'm curious about your thoughts about Greg because now in season two, we do know that he's married to Tanya now at this point. And if, spoiler alert, obviously, if you haven't seen season two, at the end, Tanya does die. And as part of an elaborate plot that was set up,
Which was shocking because she almost made it out. She killed. She says the gays are trying to
yeah,
kill me. She almost, she kills them, and then she trips on the boat and hits her head on the side of the boat.
yeah,
Oh, I was like,
yeah,
no, you were so close. Oh, that was shocking.
yeah, yeah,
My mouth was on the floor for that
yeah,
scene.
yeah. It was a wild scene. But my question is, uh, well, do you think that Greg saw Tanya as a mark when he first met her? Do you think he loved her? Because we were talking about Lucia,
Yeah.
right? And Lucia's intentions, but I'm curious, what about Greg's intentions? What do you think his deal was?
Uh, that's a great question. So, yeah, in season one, like I just thought that they were I thought that it was genuine in season one. Then you learn more about Greg.
Mm.
And I the way I would have to say originally I didn't think so, and I don't think I don't think there was love there for sure. But
Mm.
I think he kind of I think he grew fond of her maybe. But I don't know. When you see him in season three, it seems like he has like no emotion. He's like, um, I think that she was just, yeah, I think she was just a mark from the beginning. But in the first season, I did not think that. But then as you see his character, especially in the third season, how uh, you see more of different sides to him, and he's very, shows no emotion or sadness over all the things that happened. So I think she was the mark from the beginning. Yes.
Yeah, I am definitely on that side of the fence because I think when I look at the whole situation and the switch up, his whole demeanor, his very shady behavior, also in
Yeah.
season two, he was taking a lot of calls behind closed doors. I have to believe that he was talking to maybe some other woman or like has another family somewhere,
Yeah.
or yeah, just as you casually do. Or making arrangements to have a hit on your wife, and you probably take that call up behind closed doors too. But yeah, he had a lot of sketchy behavior, and
He
also
did. Yeah.
he said he had cancer in the first terminal cancer. That's the key,
Oh yeah.
terminal
What
cancer.
that
Right?
was
What happened to
never brought
cancer?
up again. Yeah.
No, it never came up again. And so I have to wonder myself, was he lying about that? Like, is he just a straight up sociopath and he was lying about the cancer to elicit sympathy from Tanya or to make Tanya feel like she had to, live her best life or they had to live their best life because he didn't have much life left, right? So you would change your behavior if you felt like somebody that you were dating kind of was not long for the for the world. It would maybe make you more impulsive. Maybe would make you want to rush into, say, a marriage, for example, because you only have so much time left, right? So yeah, I'm beginning to think that Greg's intention at the outset was a lot more diabolical than I initially realized.
Yeah, I feel the same. Greg, yeah, I think it was, that was his, that's what he does. He just befriends
Mm,
these rich older women, and
mm.
then he has his plot to kill them and take their money. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, I mean, yeah, that seems like we get a little bit more confirmation perhaps of that in season three. But yeah, season two does give us a different side of Greg for sure. And I think to your point earlier about Tanya's death, yeah, absolutely. It's unfortunate she went out that way, but also it's so fitting that she went out the way she did. It's so Tanya, it's so Tanya-esque that
It's
the way she went out.
it's very on brand for Tanya.
Very much, very much. Yeah, very much. And you know, that death scene was quite shocking. I know a lot of people the next day were talking about it, and it's one of many scenes I think in season two that definitely had, my jaw on the floor. And I'm curious about how season two landed for you. Are there any scenes that stood out for you that were memorable or shocking?
Oh, there's a lot of shocking scenes in season two. I um I really, as far as the scenes I really liked, I mean, just the scenery in Sicily is amazing. I really liked, we didn't talk much
Mm.
about Mia. Um, I did like Mia as a character, and she had, there's scenes when she's playing the piano, when she finally gets to perform.
Mhm.
Um, I thought those were beautiful scenes as well. And she uses, speaking of like sex, which is one of the main themes of the season, she uses sex to get ahead. So she ends up sleeping. I mean, yeah, yeah, banging that the guy who performs, and get that position to perform at the hotel, and
Mhm.
yeah, so I did like the scenes where she plays the piano, and as far as shocking scenes, oh, I know what my top shocking scene was. So, yeah, we know that Portia doesn't go for the nice guy. Albie, she likes her bad
Mm.
boys. She goes for Jack. And originally Jack, I was like, we didn't talk much about Jack in this episode, but originally Jack was like. I was like, he's the bad boy, but he's on vacation with his uncle. I mean, is he really that bad? Maybe maybe this is gonna work out. But he's just gonna, she wanted to have an adventure on this vacation, Portia. So that's what she said. So I was like, maybe Jack can do that for her, and that's gonna be good for
Mhm.
her. Yeah, it does not go well because the shocking scene I'm talking about, Jack and his uncle are they're really close, all right? They're way closer than I thought they were. So when Jennifer Coolidge wakes up and she's hearing these noises late at night, and she sees that Jack is banging his uncle, which is not his uncle. But that was the most shocking scene. I was not expecting that.
Mm.
And again, I had to take my jaw off the floor for that after that scene.
Yeah, word. I was not expecting that either. Uncle Love and Jack, that was really shocking, and also led to one of my favorite quotes when Portia was questioning him about the relationship, which he denied being anything other than his nephew. I think that's when Portia just blankly asked him, "So you F your uncle?" And I think that was like one of my favorite quotes. And I think yeah, it was really, really shocking to see that. And I think season two again, to the credit of the diabolical brain. I'm like, wait, like that was again something that I don't know if any of us would have predicted that. I don't think we had that on our bingo cards. So it was a really interesting twist. There are
Mhm.
a lot of different subplots in season two as well. But that one, yeah, that came out of left field for me, and I think at that moment as well, it was really interesting to see it kick into high gear and recognize in that moment that okay, things are not as it seems. So it was a shocking scene and a really great one as well too that I think people will continue to talk about for a long time. Yeah.
Did you have a most shocking scene, or was that your most shocking scene as well?
That was the one that I listed. Yep, I would say
Okay.
that, and Tanya's death. I mean, uh, yeah, those are the two, absolutely for sure. I think they are the ones that stick out to me, and like again, we talked about location, location, location here, and the power of choosing Italy as a location for a season about sex. And I think that, you know, Italy really provided a lot of great opportunities because, they were tennis
Right.
death happening on the water like that. The whole lifestyle in Sicily, it really opened up a lot of opportunities for both these scenes to kind of take place. And yeah, I also want to give another nod again to another favorite character because I mentioned it at the top of our podcast, but Italy. Italy, I think, was really used really well here. Sicily was really showcased, and I think the use of and the nod to the culture and also the use of the folklore throughout. Like, for example, some of the folklore that was described at the beginning of the series when they were showing those kind of, I'll call them like those porcelain um, sculptures or porcelain kind of headpieces of
Yeah.
those characters from Sicilian folklore. I think they did a great job of setting up, like, basically, if you go back and listen to the stories that were being told about those headpieces, they speak to what happened, and they speak to and foreshadow what was going to happen to Tanya and others as well. So I think, yeah, Italy was also one of my favorite characters. In general, all the scenes were really memorable because of the beautiful and stunning scenery um, in season two. And I think that it will be interesting when we do get into the next season in more detail, talk about Thailand and how we felt about Thailand as a reference point for the season and how well it may have lent to the themes for season three. But I think for season
Ah,
two, yeah, you couldn't have had a better location. It just yeah, made every scene actually quite memorable in a
no, I
way.
agree.
Yeah.
It was beautiful, and I definitely have to go there. And add it to my travel
Mm-hmm.
bucket list. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. No, you'll love it. It's yeah, I'm sure it's gonna be even better going there, like, having seen some of the scenery and understanding a bit more about the culture and like, yeah, it's a very romantic place and I've never met anybody that's really had a bad time there. So I think it's a pretty safe location to put on your travel list. Um, of course, like I said, season three will be in Thailand. We'll get into that a little later, but uh, I'm curious about your thoughts on other locations in general. Like, if we were to do a dream list of locations for a future season of The White Lotus, is there any place that stands out to you that you would love to see the crew go to next?
That's a great question. I would like to see them go to. I'd like to see them go to Paris. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I
Paris. I
just
like. Why
I
Paris?
just can kind of see similar to the Italy locate Sicily location that it would be romantic, but I just feel
Hmm.
like it would. I think it would be a really good season as far as you know, how, yeah, the French, culture, and also, the. I just think it would be I think it would be a good location. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely do.
and
Yeah.
obviously Paris, like you said, a lot of different cultural things could be played with there. And I mean, even this season being about sex, I could easily see Paris also having been a great backdrop for this type of thing too. Um, both cultures that are both viewed as romantic cultures, and like I thought about this uh, a little bit earlier, and I was thinking Japan would be a great place to go to because it's got such a distinct culture, a lot of elements that you could play with around so many different things. The traditional culture of Japan, the ultra modern culture of Japan. Obviously, it's a more stoic culture, but also the the things that are not said, the unspoken things in the culture would be really interesting to play with. And
Yeah.
also, Japan, just gonna say it straight up, it's a place where, I mean, you can get uh, panties in a vending machine or a coffee in the vending machine. Pick your poison. It's the ultimate place where any dream or fetish can come true. So I think where they have a very
Yeah.
um, sort of stoic and uh, maybe some might say like polite sort of culture on the surface. I also think Japan has a really interesting underbelly that could be explored, where there's a lot of subversion within the culture. So I think if you were to do a season there, it would be remarkable. And obviously, it's stunning, stunning scenery there as well too. I would definitely love to see what Mike White would do there with Japanese culture, and then also I would love to see Scandinavia too. Like if you went to like Sweden or Norway or places where I'm somewhat familiar with the culture, but not as much. It would be interesting to see, like in that kind of context, what he would do. And I think there's been rumblings that he's looking to actually do something in either a cold destination. So, like, I could imagine maybe like doing like a some kind of like maybe like a ski lodge, and like there's people at a ski resort and something happens. That could be kind of interesting,
Oh, that would be good,
right? I could
actually.
totally see that
Yeah.
going down.
Like a band
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like
Like I'm getting
yeah.
like vibes kind of uh where like kind of force majeure vibes, or like uh, you know, some maybe convention or something is happening at this resort. So it'd be cool to see what he would do with that kind of material, where people are confined to a space inside. Like they can't actually go outside. So imagine like if there was an avalanche or something and they were stuck in a ski resort in like one location, and then things started to happen indoors. Like with the first season Hawaii and the second season in Sicily, the third being in Thailand, we got to see people on location travel to different places, and we got to see a lot of movement in all those seasons. It would be really interesting to see what he does in a place where there is no movement, or where the characters are confined together, to see what kind of shenanigans they would get into just based on that. So I could absolutely see like maybe a cold season, like a ski resort chalet, where the characters, there's a murder, obviously, but the characters are trapped in
Mhm.
some way, and maybe a little bit of a departure from the really extensive location shoots that we've seen. That could be an interesting twist. I'd love to see what he would do
Mhm.
with that.
No, I agree. Yeah, that'd be
Hmm.
very interesting.
And yeah, I think, there's so many other things we obviously want to get into. But as we're kind of winding down here, at least on this part of season two, yeah, is there anything else that you wanted to talk about this season in general, or your overall impressions of how the season ended?
I think we covered it all. I mean, as far as how the season ended, I wanted Albie and Lucia to stay
Oh.
together somehow. I wanted them to kind of like go off, on their own
Mm.
together. So I wasn't happy about that. But yeah, it looked like that she just kind of played him in the end. But we'll see. And that's my only complaint of the ending of the show,
Mm.
of the
And
season.
so
Yeah.
you would like to have seen Albie and Lucia get together and like maybe he brings Lucia back to the States?
Yeah, that's what I was hoping
Oh,
happens,
interesting. Okay.
actually.
Okay, that's really interesting. Wow. Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that's really interesting. And I yeah, I think the season ended well. Like I think it ended the way to be honest, the way that it probably should have ended. And I mean, I love that. I love that you're the romantic in you wanted to see the Pretty Woman ending. I think that's cool. I Yeah, I think I mean that would have been sweet, but I also kind of like the way it ended, where you see both Lucia and Mia kind of
Yeah.
take off. Presumably, Mia now has gotten what she wanted, so she came up on top. She was a definite winner in the season, and then of course Lucia also got what she wanted as well, and just off to new adventures, maybe to new marks. I don't know. I think it kind of made sense the way it ended, but I do love I love your take on it and where you go with it. That'd be really interesting, really cool. And I'd love to revisit these couples and just know um, what happened to them at the end of the day. Where everyone is at now would be great to know too. Yeah, but okay, I think we've got a whole ton of notes and things we want to talk about when it comes to season three, but we are going to save that for another episode. But before we go, okay, final thoughts on the performances. You've mentioned a few already that you really enjoyed, but if we're going season by season and looking at season two, okay, we're giving out the Emmy, which has already been given out, of course. Who do you think was the MVP of the season in terms of performance?
Okay, I actually don't know who won the Emmy of this season,
Mm-hmm.
but that is a great question. I would say, who is the MVP of this season?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to have to go with ooh, this is actually a
Yeah, it's a scratcher. Maybe we're gonna maybe we leave our alchemist with a little bit of a I don't know of a cliffhanger, and you answer this question next time. But yeah, just as a FYI, Jennifer Coolidge won for outstanding supporting actress in a drama for her performance as Tanya McCoy
okay.
for season two. Yes, and other nominations were given to The Father, F. Murray Abraham, Michael Imperioli, Theo James, and Will Sharp. Sabrina Impacciatore, who played Valentina, Aubrey Plaza, and Simona Tabasco, also got nominated, did not win, but were nominated for their performances too.
That was well
So,
deserved. Yeah, that was definitely well deserved. Jennifer Coolidge winning. I was actually gonna say Bert. Yeah, F. Murray Abraham. I thought he did a great performance on the show, so he was actually gonna be my pick. Yeah.
okay. Solid pick. I mean, he is somebody who, has already won an Oscar. He's an Oscar winning actor for Amadeus. So, they brought in a heavy hitter for that role. And yeah, he ate that role up. Like, I didn't even feel like he was acting. It was just watching somebody, just a horny grandpa. Like, I really felt
Yeah.
he embodied that pretty well. So,
Every scene he's in, I just felt like captivated, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a great pick for sure. Um, Obviously she's not listed here, but yeah, I'm gonna actually say like Haley Lee Richardson did a great job with like the material that she had and the screen time she had. I think she really did a fantastic job. And hearing about the fact that like Theo James was nominated, yeah, I agree with that. As much as I disliked his character, that's he did a great job making me dislike Cameron's character. And Theo James he was pretty outstanding in that, and Aubrey Plaza as well, Simone Tabasco as well. But yeah, my MVP. I mean, if I put Tanya aside, or Jennifer Coolidge aside, rather, for me, yeah, I'm gonna go wild card here. I actually think it was Sabrina Impacciatore who played Valentina. She was actually
Okay.
for me really, really stunning to watch. I really enjoyed her, and
She was great. Yeah.
and I really enjoyed Haley Richardson as well too as Portia. So this is a show that has made so many people into stars, and the material that they were given, they did a great job with. So
What Sabrina does in the season without even saying anything is
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, she's is a great performance as well.
It really
Yeah.
was. It really was. Head to toe acting, and yeah, like you said, she's very expressive. As did a lot with very little, and I also have mad respect because I do know that there are quite a few scenes where she improved the lines and they kept them in. So I'm like, yeah, she has a good instinct for both comedy and drama, which I respect. So, yeah, great performances, a great season overall. I think we'll wrap it up there because there's so much more that we want to get into when it comes to season 3, and of course, as always, we're going to serve it up with some hot takes and a little peppering, a little seasoning from seasons 1 and 2 as well. But yeah, Drew, this has been awesome talking about season 2 with you and hearing your takes. And yeah, look forward to our next conversation when we're gonna dive into season 3 and the White Lotus in Thailand, which has been a dare I say polarizing season. So
It
lots
has.
to talk about. Lots to talk about. So I look forward to getting into that one with you a little later. And for all of our alchemists listening, I want to thank you as always for joining us. And we do hope you enjoyed our discussion of White Lotus season 2. And yeah, I can't wait to hear your thoughts about some of the things that we may have talked about today. Your takes: who is the MVP of the season? What are your thoughts on all of the ambiguous sort of relationships that we may have talked about as well too, and your favorite scenes? Let us know.
But before you go, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review and follow us on Instagram at culture_alchemy. We want to keep the conversation going.
Until next time, alchemists.
Stay
Stay
curious.
curious.